Hey, good morning, guys and girls. I say guys all the time, but please understand that's just the way I talk. So, guys and girls, it's all the same to me. Hey, just as a means of introduction, just in case this is your first visit with me, I've had a surgery routine since 2012. Actually, I've had 19. So it seemed every time I was supposed to be getting better, something else would pop up. But fortunately, even though I had tons and tons of work, when I'm calling work, I'm calling surgeries done up until the first 16 surgeries, I was not able to work a lot. But since I was self-employed, it all kind of worked out that I was able to do and recover, it seemed. But no matter how many surgeries during those first 16 surgeries, there was always a huge light at the end of the tunnel that I knew that I'd be able to get back, to 100%. I could do my own rehab. Like I said, 5 of those surgeries were heart surgeries. So, they would actually cut me loose after a heart surgery from physical therapy, because I was in such good shape back then that they were like, you're better than everybody here, just go on home and keep doing what you're doing. But so I always knew eventually I'd get back to 110%. But what I'm going to talk about today is game changers. Every now and then life throws us a curveball. So, like I said, I've had shoulder surgeries. I've actually had bicep surgery. I've had knee surgery, 5 heart surgeries, lots of internal surgeries. Not brain surgery, so keep those comments to yourself. I love the sarcasm. But we're going to be thrown curveballs, and we're going to have to adjust our lives to those curveballs, because nowhere, anywhere does it say life is fair. So in 2016, in April of 2016, we were actually at a really cool meeting with my real good friend, Dr. Sean Stewart, and Bappa Mukherjee. Some of y'all may know Bappa, but we had been invited to Sean's house for a dinner party, and Ethan and I were invited. Deanna had class; she couldn't go, but we didn't know. But they had actually invited 3 people. One was a professor from Harvard. One was over what I understand is the U.S. Navy's drone program. And there was another young lady from Korea that was associated with Harvard. They had invited those people to this dinner party just to meet Ethan. So it was a really cool event. And that was April 6th, I believe. But anyway, I had an upset stomach that night, but I didn't think anything about it. But by the 9th of April, the pain had been so unbearable that I just couldn't take it anymore and went to the ER. I was in so much pain that the doctors and nurses could not touch my skin, and I didn't know what had happened. But what had happened was I'd had my very first ever diverticulitis attack. And I know a lot of you people probably have diverticulitis and issues like this. This was my very first one. Unfortunately, the diverticuli evidently had blown on the 6th or 7th and ruptured, and I was filling up with you know what, and oh yeah, comments aside, ha ha. And so I went to the ER, and they basically were giving me pain meds just so they could actually examine me. The doctor there, Dr. Brian Samuel, he said, your tests are fine except your white count is crazy high. They could not find anything wrong. They did the CTs, they did the x-rays, they did everything. He said, but your white count's through the roof. And he says, I just think I need to keep you here overnight. So he kept me there overnight. And like I said, I've been in the hospital a lot. I know a lot of folks at River Park. So I know what a hospital is supposed to do and sound like. So like I said, they've given me pain meds. They give me butterfly medication, because I call it when they give you that shot in your neck, straight lining, and you see butterflies because you feel nothing. It's pretty awesome. So anyway, I made it through the next night, 6 o'clock the next morning, 7 o'clock, somewhere around there, because I was on drugs. I don't really remember. I just remember they did another scan and another x-ray. And they took me back to my room, and I had a really good friend who was my nurse, and actually 2 good friends that were my nurses. And when I got back to my room, I just heard the hall coming alive. And when I say coming alive, you just hear a lot of noise, a lot of racket. And so my nurse was there, and I said, hey, I said, somebody's dying. I said, go see who it is. It might be somebody I know. Not violating HIPAA, by the way. And he said, well, let me go check. He said, something's definitely going on. So he came back and stuck his head in the door, and he said, it's you. So if that doesn't sober you up, nothing will. They had already called for the ambulance, and they had found the rupture on the second set of scans that was not showing on the first set of scans. So it was the same team that looked at the night before, but I had moved my body in a way that it finally showed up. And so they rushed me to St. Thomas, which was my home away from home, on all these surgeries up to that point, of course. So I'm used to that protocol of I go in, they sign, all this stuff, and I have the same little girl that signs me in every time. But this time was a little different. They rolled me straight into an OR. And when I got there, I've usually got my regular OR team. And when I get in that OR, there is a doctor at the end. I can tell he's the cutter, the surgeon. And there's a whole team around me. They're already masked up. And they immediately start my anesthesia. And he says, Mr. Barrett, I've got enough time to tell you that you may wake up with an ugly scar, and you may wake up with a colostomy bag. Do you understand? And I don't remember anything after that. I was so ignorant that I did not know where a colostomy bag would even be. I didn't know where on your body a colostomy bag was. I had heard about them my whole life, but I didn't know. And sure enough, I woke up in critical care. And I actually started reaching, you can't see, but I started reaching up high on my chest and feeling down to see if I had this bag. And when I felt down, sure enough, I found out where it was. And I'm going to cuss just for a second because it's the truth. I said, oh shit. And then immediately I caught and corrected myself and said, how are we going to work this into our testimony? So I didn't know how bad it was because they wouldn't tell me, but I ended up in critical care for 10 days. So this is the week of that anniversary, and I totally forgot it, actually, because it's been 2 years ago. But this was the week that started after all of these other surgeries. This was the first step of something that I didn't know was going to change my life forever on how I had to do everything. So we did the bag. They taught me how to use that and all that stuff. And within 5 months, I was able to get my reversal done. So I was very fortunate there to get my bag reversed. So I don't have a bag anymore. But they released me to go back to the gym because that's always my first question. That was always my first question after every surgery is, when can I go back to the gym? When can I go back to the gym? So they let me to go back to the gym after several weeks after the second surgery. And I developed a small hernia just under my solar plexus area. And I called it my pet because it didn't hurt or anything, but you could push on it and it just wouldn't hurt. So I had a concern, so I went back to my doc for a checkup, and he literally pushed on that hernia like a doctor pushes on it pretty hard. And 3 more hernias just went pop, 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 pop. So they did that before our eyes, and he said, we've got to do surgery. He said, you are eat up with hernias. So what they have to do, by the way, let me backstep a little bit. What they have to do when you have a colostomy bag, you have a huge scar from your sternum about to your belt line, 36 staples. And so when they do the reversal, the scar is so big they have to cut it out. They can't open that scar. They have to cut it out and give you a new scar. So that's another 36 staples. And so when they opened me up for the third time, he basically told me, he said, you are like Swiss cheese in there, and we have wrapped you in mesh, your entire abdomen in mesh. And so that's another 36 staple story. But people go, boy, you've lost a bunch of weight. No, they cut 3 inches out of my middle and pulled me together. So anyway, we went through this progress, and I kept asking about the gym and kept asking about the gym, and they kept putting me off and putting me off. So the real deal turned out to be, he said, you're going to be on a 5-pound weight restriction. So we thought that was fine, because we figured I was still healing. So don't do anything at the gym. No picking up anything heavier than a gallon of milk Excuse me. And so we went on. But the next visit, it was like, let's keep that 5-pound weight restriction a little bit longer. And I was like, is this 5-pound weight restriction going to be forever? And he's a really good guy. And I love him like family. And he just said, well, probably not. Let's just keep seeing. Well, by the third time, he came in and he said, your 5-pound weight restriction's forever. And I said, you've just crippled me. And he said, I did not expect this to work this way. He said, but your body, you are genetically prone to have these hernias, and I'm horrified that if you have another surgery, and he said, and I quote, it will be a horrendous repair now that we have this mesh in. He basically stated that if I got another hernia or any kind of abdominal issue, that they would have to go in through my back to get to my front and pull ribs and all that. But he said, luckily you've had your appendix out and your gallbladder's out and your digestive tract's perfect. He said, but you just really got to be careful. And I said to him at that time, I said, well, I'm in the copier business. That's what I do. I'm in the laptop computer business. And he said, well, I can't let you do that. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? And he said, well, it's not going to be that bad. And I said, well, okay, hand me your laptop. And he said, well, I can't do that. And I said, that's what I do for a living. And surgeons are tough. Surgeons are bred to be tough. Surgeons deal with life and death every day. But over this 2-year process, basically, he and I got to be really good friends. And he cried. He said, I'm sorry. He said, but this is the way it's got to be. And that put me into such a state of depression 2 years ago. Actually, it was January of 2017 that I almost did not ever recover from it. And I still struggle with it today. What I left out was it took them 3 months in April of 2016. They wouldn't even tell us how bad it was. They would not tell us. They just kept worrying about the healing process. And finally they told us that when I got on the table for the first initial surgery, that they had to pull all my organs out and clean them by hand. They had to clean my cavity out by hand and place my organs back in after they did the bag. And he said, you were within 6 hours of death. And if Dr. Samuel had sent me home from the ER, I would have died 100%. But he didn't. And I think back to him saying, there's just something telling me that you need to stay, even though everybody says I should send you home, and he let me stay. So anyway, I was in such a state of depression, and I kept trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, because basically I felt crippled. I felt that my life was over. I felt I had no purpose. I felt horrible. I've got a friend that's kind of going through this process, right now, allergies, right now, and she was at the same point that I was at. And honestly, after my very first surgery, when I got the bag, there was about 2 or 3 weeks there that if I had the wherewithal to do it, I would have ended my life. And so, but I got through that, and I'm stronger. I have good family. I have people that love me and people that took care of me and got me through that. But none of them knew I was actually having that struggle. So when I got that message up, she actually told me, she said, I'm thinking about suicide. And I said, don't say that, get through it. I said, it'll be okay. Give it 2 or 3 weeks and you'll get used to it and it'll be fine. And guess what? She's kind of gotten used to it and it's kind of fine. So anyway, I kept studying because I was in a hole and I was in the bed and I wouldn't get out of bed and I wouldn't leave the house because, it just, who wants to go out with this big bag hanging off the side of your body? It was summertime by then and things like that. But, you get that correct and you go, hey, light at the end of the tunnel, it's good. I can get back in the gym. I can do what I can do. Then you get a hernia and then they're like, oh, it's just a hernia. And I've had hernia surgeries before, no big deal. And you're like, hey, light at the end of the tunnel, no big deal. Boom, 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 let's do this surgery. And you do the final 19th surgery, it was actually the 18th surgery, I apologize. the 18th surgery, and he says you can never pick up anything again, basically. I'm a big turkey hunter. I'm a big deer hunter. I'm a big outdoors kind of guy, and I can't pick up a gun because my gun weighs 7 pounds. My shotgun weighs, 9 pounds. A turkey, if you shoot it, 20 to 30 pounds. 30 be awesome. A deer weighs way more than 5 pounds. Not to mention copiers weigh hundreds of pounds, and just the tower on your desktop weighs more than 5 pounds. And I was just in such a horrible, dark place. And like I said, I've never done the drugs or alcohol deal, but I have done the depression deal. And I found a scripture, and I'm one of these people, I have a terrible memory, so I will never be able to quote the Bible verbatim, so without notes. But I found a scripture in Isaiah 43, 18 and 19, and it says, "Forget the former things, do not dwell in the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and the streams and in the wasteland." But it says, "See, I am doing a new thing." And something about that registered. That I could sit there in the bed and waste away and feel sorry for myself and not go out and, sit in my own stew, for example, or I could do something different. So what I started doing was I went to a website at the United States Marine Corps. I downloaded the Commander's Commandant's Reading List. I ordered every one of those books off of eBay, dirt cheap. I went to the Navy's website and downloaded the Admiral's Reading List and bought every one of those books, dirt cheap. If a book is mentioned in any of those books and I find it, I order that book off of eBay, dirt cheap. And I started reading books. And just about the same exact time as when Phil Mitchell did a leadership talk at our church. And he just happened to talk about a lot of these books. And it was just crazy timing. So, my game changer that I had to reevaluate everything that I have ever done was this week. Well, started this week 2 years ago. It ended January of 2017 when the doctor said, "Hey, you're shot. You can't do what you've been doing your whole life." But I knew I could talk. And being in the hospital as much as I've been in the hospital, I knew that there were other people with the same struggles I was having, slightly different, but all in all, struggles. And people that have had 1 or 2 surgeries don't know how to handle it like people that have had multiple surgeries. I'm just here to tell you, it's a different mindset. If I had to have a surgery today, it would not bother me a bit. I would go right now. I have no fear of needles, scalpels, doctors, nurses, or anything. But I know how the program works. I've been there. But, when you've been laying in ICU pods and critical care units for weeks and, at least days, often, you see the struggles that people are struggling with. A lot of you folks share your struggles with me. I appreciate that. I had a phone call yesterday about a young man struggling and that they would like me to come talk to him. And I can't wait to talk to him. So, that's just kind of where I'm at with this. But I hated to miss this anniversary week of the week in 2016 and not at least acknowledge it. So we don't know. We have no idea of what's going to happen and when it's going to happen that's going to be your game changer. But there's going to be a game changer for you. And when it happens, don't do what I did. Don't sit there and stew for months and months and months. Get over it, get through it, get around it, because you can do it. Don't sit there and wait on the world to feel sorry for you, because even though the world feels sorry for you, they don't really feel sorry for you because you've got to get through it. You are on your own when it comes to your mental recovery. You're never on your own with your spiritual recovery. You know, you've got to pray and pray hard. And, you know, you've got to start your day with prayer and end your day with prayer. I believe that. But, and that may not be your thing, but you better find something to get you out of your hole, because you've got to keep your mind active. You've got to make promises to yourself, and you've got to keep those promises. Because if you don't, you're going to fail. If you don't, you're going to get worse. And there's no sense in being worse. Like I said, these videos, I don't know why I do them. I assume that somebody gets something out of them. But I'm just telling you, I have been through many of the worst days of my life. Many, many, many of the worst days. I will compare some of my days with any of your days, not saying it's a contest. But I will compare heart surgeries and critical care units and hundreds of visits to the hospital over a very short period of time with just about anybody. But like I said, your struggle is different than my struggle. But it's just as real to you as mine is to me. But I have figured out a way to try to get around it, and you need to try to get around yours too. So, that being said, if this video has helped you, or if you have any suggestions or any tips to help others that are struggling, you know, give me a comment. Make a video of your own. Facebook Live is free. YouTube is free. You can do this stuff. But, you know, you never, ever, ever know who you're helping. You know, hey, just so you know, I'm Drew Barrett. If I didn't introduce myself earlier, this YouTube channel is for you. So use it all you want. Share anything I post anytime you like. I try to keep it upbeat. I try to keep it real. But this is the anniversary of the first day that really started a life change that I was not expecting. And guess what? I got through it. You can too. Love y'all.